Hey, we're at Acres USA with a person that doesn't have to have an introduction, because if you're in the agricultural organic world, everyone knows the famous, the wonderful, the fantastic, enjoyable to listen to Gary Zimmer. And thank you for spending a few minutes with us.
Thank you.
What I was curious about is you've done this for a couple years.
A couple of years, like 40.
40 years.
Yeah.
You were biological and you were natural and you were organic long before it was cool.
Yes, that's essentially right.
What have you noticed?
Yeah, and I think as we go back in the old days, I got introduced to, because I'm a dairy nutritionist, to I was teaching at a tech college, and people coming to my class, and so a Brookside group came in there and on the all brick soil balance kind of thing, and being a dairy nutritionist, it made a lot of sense to me, and so that started down my path, and then I got introduced to Acres USA, and I've been coming to this since the early 80s, and I never missed one. I've actually been speaking at them since the early 90s, and I've been the longest presenter of anybody and not missing a year of anybody in this show.
That's good
and
stuff.
People keep coming back, but I said it was I was confused like everybody else. But what stayed at this show for the last 40 years is the old all brick soil balance. Getting the bases laid right is still reality and is still here. Now over the years we had radionics and sonic boom and whistles going off and birds chirping, and we had. This booth was half compost tea at one time. Half the events here were compost tea. And biology was, some of the people that did all this biology was all the answer. But the old soil balance people stayed in line. And some of that's come and gone. So now we are today, our base is still here. But there are a movement now to more looking at the biologicals and plant stimulants and some of those things. But they aren't going to help you. So I tell people it's almost like, I'm going to run to the health food store and buy me some pills. And yet I eat junk food all day long.
Yeah.
So until you get the base right, it doesn't do any good to go buy those pills. Yeah. And so you're involved in that little world. And I said, so it's nice to see. And we got a crowd here now that we never would have had in the old days. So they're from all over the planet yet. But just the mainstream industry kind of taking a look at this thing. And I think we got to take care of the planet. I think consumers are going to ask questions about the food. They want it clean and all this. So everybody asks, how did I get started back in the 1970s? Well, I'm the guy that shut the dairy industry down in the state of Hawaii. I was doing graduate work, and I was feeding a pineapple byproduct to cows, and they started to abort. It was laced with insecticides. They sprayed the pineapple with insecticides that got into the cows. Meadow Gold Dairy back in 1971, it was milking 1,500 cows. They dumped milk for 6 months. The headlines of the Honolulu Star Bulletin, dairy industry in Hawaii threatened. That was my graduate work. So I said, oh my gosh, people are eating pineapples. How would I know they're laced? I couldn't feed them to cows that there's all these chemicals. That's what made me started questioning things. I started questioning everything. What are we doing? What are we putting in our food? Yeah. What's about our soil? How do we take care of our soils? And that's how I got into this thing and been at it for a long time. And that spurred me on. Because I felt hurt and naive. Because why would I not give pineapple to a cow when people are eating them?
Wow.
So anyway, that's what started this whole thing. So the changes that are coming about in agriculture, and again, we still got businesses and everybody wants to get involved with it. And are we going to keep the intent? There's people who just want to use the organic word because they think they can sell it for more. And we got to be able to come along with a way of identifying high nutritional value, clean, high quality food.
Yeah.
And it comes off a healthy mineralized soil. So we got to be able to identify health. That's why I tell everybody, we got to go no-till, got to go no-till. I said, why can't our focus be, we got to have healthy soil? And if you don't need to till, then why would you till? Why would tillage be the focus? Why wouldn't healthy soil be the focus?
Yeah. And you've run into this. So many new speakers coming onto the circuit. They've read some books. They've talked to some different people. They've interviewed them. And all of a sudden now they've got a world of information, and they're going to teach people how to do something. The pineapple story, you've walked the walk, you've talked the talk, you've lived it. You've gotten dirt on your shoes more than carpet fuzz.
And we got our own farm, and yes, we've been organic since the early 90s, and we've been a fairly nice organic dairy crop operation in Wisconsin, and I've worked with 4,000 farms, and I follow them all over this planet since I wrote those books. I've been in Australia and Africa, and you name it, England, and everywhere else. So my book has actually been translated in Polish now. The first country to translate my book is Poland.
Awesome. Congratulations.
So if you speak Polish, you can now read it in Poland. I don't know who's going to read it.
Are you going to put any Polish jokes in there?
I don't think so.
Okay. Norwegian jokes?
That'd probably be good. So yeah, and that was the thing about all the new people coming in. So my topic, and I bring up all the time, and I'm designing it like a jigsaw puzzle. See, in the beginning, I knew NPK, pH, and soil was dirt. So as time went on, there's all these other pieces. Where does calcium fit in? Where does this fit in? And where does biology fit in? What about bacteria? There's all these pieces. I didn't know where they belong. So now, if my 40 years doing, I see a pretty nice jigsaw puzzle. There's a lot of pieces that are still hanging out here, but now I understand the base a lot better. So I tell people, in my lifetime, we really got this thing figured out. That means you and scientists and researchers and people, we understand the minerals. We know there's 20 minerals to grow that crop. We understand there's ratios, and we also then understand that they need to be made plant available. We know biology is in that link, and we know cover crops and plants and compost are in to get those nutrients exchangeable, and we understand tillage. It's not no-till. It's about controlling air and water and manage decay of residues. I'm a real believer in shallow incorporating residues and running rippers. If that soil is waterlogged, it can't breathe. We've got jobs to do as farmers. And so I think we got that all figured out. So if you get your base laid and then you play around with other things, I think the crazy thing is to go out, like I said, just like buying those pills and try some really extreme, radical kind of things when you got a ridiculous base.
Have you seen any crops that grow food, nutritious, healthy food, that can live in a anaerobic environment without aerobic microbes?
I don't think so. I don't know. Which is really another interesting thing, because dairy cows have as an anaerobic digestive system. And they do produce some really interesting things in that digestive system that actually they take methane and turn it into oxygen and hydrogen. And so now if I got an anaerobic organism, I can do things with it, but the soil's still got to be aerobic. It's got to be alive. It's got to have aerobic organisms. It can't have a crust on the ground. This whole thing about soil health is real.
How are you coming with your anaerobic digester? Are you getting it to where you're content or happy or proud of it yet, or?
We are proud of it. It's like everything else. The ag economy is kind of down, but we've been doing a lot of research. We have about 90% of the farms. We have really positive research. So what we're doing is making fertilizer on the back end of an anaerobic digester. And that's why I brought on financial partners. We spent a lot of money down in Indiana building that fertilizer facility. So that big farm of 15,000 cows with not enough land to spread manure, we'll never spread manure ever again. It'll all be made into fertilizer so we can distribute it back out here. The fertilizer is coming out of the back of the anaerobic digester, so it feeds in the cow for 24, 48 hours, and it goes to the digester for 3 weeks. So what's left, we take the fiber and the water out, there's a bunch of dead bodies of bugs, so it's really a biological stimulant, and then we add minerals to make a fertilizer. So we got our biology and minerals all together. It's been performing well, it's just getting it accepted and distributed.
Something new.
That facility can do 65,000 tons of fertilizer. Well, that's a lot of acres of land.
Oh my God.
And so the next 10 are already financed as soon as this is all up and marketed. We've been doing, I got an email here today, a big co-op in Illinois is going to start distributing for us. And so it's moving along, and the farmers are always looking for something and healthier crops and being able to reduce their chemistries that don't make their farm better.
Jumping to a whole different topic, genetic modification. Chemical dependence. Is it sustainable from what you've seen in your years of experience?
No, and I think the whole thing is whether it be a human or an animal or whatever it is, if we don't get back to prevention and getting with healthy men, we all got an immune system. Plants, they make all these botanicals because they're protecting themselves, and if they're not healthy, they can't do that. So we start modifying and changing. Mother Nature is going to bat last in this show out here, and we're just going to get less of a quality food, and it's going to, everything, you just watch those TV ads about drugs. I mean, the side effect list is 25 times longer than the beneficial list. And GMOs and the chemicals that are getting into our food and things, we're giving up things. Trace minerals aren't in it. This isn't in it. So I don't see that as being long-term sustainable, and I think the consumer is going to fight back. And I think our environment can't really tolerate it. So I think we have the information. I think we got it all figured out to lay the base to grow this healthy crop. I'm not saying we don't need intervention once in a while. Now, I was just at conferences, a lot of the fertilizer companies or biological companies, they're all trying to develop insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, pesticides that are certified organic. And we still better play a prevention game. We don't need to just substitute a healthier drug. Because Roundup was supposed to be a whole lot healthier than DDT, and whatever.
Oh boy!
DDT was the bad guy, and now we got atrazine was supposed to be really good compared to 2,4-D, and on the list goes. But they all end up giving us trouble later on.
Yeah. The residues that are in the feed, and you already saw it from an insecticide in pineapple, aborting dairy cows.
Yes.
1,200, 1,400, 1,600 pound dairy cow, and the insecticide.
And that got accumulated in the fat. And that's why the milk was dumped for 6 months. It took 6 months to get the insecticide out of the fat so the milk was clean.
Oh.
That's why we dumped milk for 6 months. We could stop the insecticide on day one, but it didn't leave the cow's system for 6 months.
Oh.
Even if she didn't abort. So that's why all those resin, what do we have in our body? All the foods, my family's pretty much organic and we try to live clean, but I'm on the road like you and can't live that way all the time, but at least my first 50 years of my life was pretty clean as a farmer. We grew our own food, and we weren't in touch with a lot of anything. But then now the kids are born and raised with all this stuff and coming out of the womb with all these things embodied in them. It's going to be troubles.
With you traveling, do you think you can get enough nutrition from the food that you get in a restaurant as you're traveling?
No, I don't think I can. Now, I carry a lot of stuff with me when I travel.
I bet you take a couple supplements.
Oh, I take a lot of supplements.
Your eyes are much too bright and you've got too much jazz to you to not doing something special.
And so at home, we're pretty well, I'm really conscientious of it and of my diet and everything else because I eat. Yeah, I like things to taste good, and I can do that, but I eat for health. I don't eat I don't want the salts and the sugars. I'm eating because I want to keep my energy. I'm already pretty elderly, and I want my energy and my health to be here. I tell people I want to walk to my grave in health. I don't want to suffer for 20 years to get there.
There's an outlook that I never heard about before. I want a healthy walk to my grave.
That'd be a nice way to live your life, And so that was why, yes, and I do take a lot of supplements, and I'm a dairy nutritionist by training, but I also do a lot of human nutrition kind of.
Is there any similarities between what a cow needs nutritionally and what we need nutritionally?
I think it all starts with that base of food. So if I got to have the antioxidants, I got all the superior compounds from healthy grown food in my diet as the cow does, and then I got negatives and positives. I got to kind of balance that out somewhere along that line, and so that's why that base becomes pretty important. And that's how back in 1974 or so. Is when I got introduced to the fact that we could change alfalfa. We could change feed by how we took care of the soil and how we fertilized it. So then I said, what would ideal feed for a cow look like? And that, we can increase it's really interesting because fat content is a monitor of health. Whether you got a steer on a feedlot, it's not going to get fat until it's been overfed enough energy, otherwise it's going to maintain itself. We've doubled the fat content of alfalfa. So I said, at what point does oil content, if you want to call it, what point does the alfalfa say, I got all the other things I need, I can put extra oil for reserve in my system? Isn't that the same as animals? It's amazing. And I didn't even realize that over the years of fertilizing hay that we actually had doubled the oil content. So what about all the things we can't measure? Are some things indicators? I like to watch my nitrogen to sulfur ratio. I like to have high phosphorus uptake in my foods. I watch that magnesium, and I want certain minerals to be in my food as indicators, because that means a lot of things are working right. That plant's pretty healthy. If you're going to get high phosphorus, you got to have mycorrhizae. You got to have a healthy biological soil. You just can't buy your way into taking in more phosphorus.
Many nutritionists work for a company that they want to sell a lot of ingredients. You didn't go that route.
I didn't go that route, and I always joked about it, and I said, you see, the trouble is if you're in the local little community, and of course a lot of these places, fertilizer places, the fertilizer price was just a kind of a gimmick. It was service and price, but they really wanted to sell them all the chemicals. That's where they made all their money. Well, now that's even changed a little bit out here. And so we were all over the countryside, so I said I wasn't dependent on my little base of trying to sell my existing customers more. Our objective was to make them profitable and think they could stay on land. And then, we were always... That's why I'm all over the Midwest, because I didn't want to be concentrated in one area and forced to sell more stuff they didn't need.
You didn't have much competition doing the right thing for the customer because everybody wanted to line up. It's like, well, let's just sell them some stuff that reacts to the symptoms.
When I started this business, we started looking at the dry fertilizer business, and you couldn't get things I wanted. You couldn't get sulfur, you couldn't get trace minerals, you couldn't even get potassium sulfate. You could only get the salts and the cheap and the ammonia stuff. That's why I got into fertilizer business. And so then, as time now, you can see those things all over. And that's why this whole thing about carbon-based fertilizer, see that? Whether I put some kind of whatever with it, I always said the dumbest idea man ever came up with was put fertilizers in solution. See, my dad used to buy fertilizers that were more slow release, or my grandfather, a 3-12-12, then a 6-24-24, then a 9-23-30, all increased the solubility. And then we put them in solution, and then we wonder how they get in our water. It's like,
Yeah.
you just put it in solution and you increase the solubility. So why don't we put carbon? Why don't we get it as how nature works? Why don't we put carbon with our fertilizer? And that's our digestate stuff, and that's putting humates or putting minerals in compost piles or growing a cover crop. You're getting your minerals in a carbon biological cycle. That's where they belong.
With this movement that you have been a huge part of for many, many years, and if all of these booths haven't stopped to say thank you, Gary, for paving the way for them, they should, and I hope they do. But as you see this, do you see the organic chemical-free movement increasing? And can we keep up? Can we feed the world without chemicals?
Well, there's a, and I'm not sure everybody's got the management skill to do the on organic on a large scale. I think we can do a lot better, cleaner job, and maybe the organic being 100% pure and clean. And maybe there'll have to be some intervention at some point in time. But there are just like mechanical weed robots coming along. There's tools going to come along that'll make it easier. And right now, all land is not necessarily suited to be organic or no-till.
Yeah.
And, you get a heavy old clay that doesn't drain, and you go to western Minnesota, their soils are all black for a really good reason. If you left the cover on top, they wouldn't dry out to July. And now sandy, loam, well-drained soil is a fun organic farm to have. Now, if you got a soil that you got to wait a week to get out there after it rains to be able to cultivate, you probably shouldn't be organic, and that need different kinds of crops grown. Yeah. So I think the model of going, we got to change the whole food system and get it really more affordable.
Yeah.
See, I have a flour mill, and we have a meat market in Wisconsin. Our flour mill, we're making, a family, they're making tortillas, and we're doing corn tortillas. So I'm delivering them organic corn for the same price that they were getting conventional white corn. And I said, now I want to see that corn tortilla in the store priced exactly the same as conventional, because I'm selling you the grain at 25 cents a pound. It's $15 a bushel for my white corn. That's good money for us, cleaned in bags, sitting it, and they make their tortillas out of it. So I said, your organic tortillas, you don't need to double the price, because I'm selling you the input for the same price of conventional.
Pay it forward.
Pay it forward. Yeah. So we're going to see how that works. I own the mill, so I guess we can control what they do in there, can't I?
You better be able to.
So they're a young couple, and they're really interested. And so if we can, so that's why we got to get some of those prices. Organic is disproportionate. Our milk price might be 50% higher than conventional, but in the store it's 4 times higher in cost to the consumer. And so we got to get more people doing it at clean, high nutritious, healthy food.
Yeah.
So it's more affordable by more people.
If a young farmer is looking to transition into organic, into non-GMO, into less chemical or no chemical, what would be your words from all the years of experience and the travels that you had? What's the first couple things they should look at to make that less painful for the transition?
So I think about right now, even myself, we're looking at putting in some elderberries. So I want to go out to the really successful elderberry growers, number one. I'm going to read and study all about what it takes for nutrition. But I tell the guys, if you're going to go into this movement, figure out first what some successful guys are doing and figure out how that fits your land. You get your knowledge first. You figure out your whole system. What's my soil test look like? What kind of minerals? Do I got the right kind of soil for this? For what kind of crops fit me best? What kind of crops fit my management? Where are my markets going? All these things, and find out what kind of fits you. And then and I said, it's probably easier to get some of those things done while you're still conventional, is to start going after healthy soil and do cover crops and switch some of the minerals you're using, so that when you're not just jumping off a cliff and hoping that you can pull it off.
Yeah.
See, the one thing really good about organic, and I know it's a challenge for a lot of people, but it takes 36 months since the last chemical before it's certified organic. You have 36 months time to fix your soils, grow your cover crops. We spend that 36 months, those 2 growing seasons, we don't harvest anything. We just fix soils. And at the end of 2 years, you won't recognize the soil we started with. And so now when we are organic, we already are ready to be successful.
Yeah.
And so that's the base they got to get in place.
Yep. Cover crops.
Yeah.
Is it going to save the world?
Well, and that's the thing. Where do they all fit and how do they fit? Now, the whole thing with the cover crop thing is that I think the people look at it right now. We got a neighbor and he's doing rye because he's forced to plant rye. He just said it added me another cost. He doesn't understand how to take value out of it. And so maybe some of this short corn they're going to grow for conventional guys that they can interseed. See, some of this stuff, interseeding corn for us organically doesn't work because we cultivate and it's too late to get it started, and we plant a little bit later and all that. So, but I say to see change agriculture, and I screamed all over. I always wanted to be Secretary of Agriculture for just one day. I need a bodyguard or two, and what I say goes. Now, politics don't quite work that way.
Good idea, though.
I want to subsidize that third crop. And that can be a cover crop. And quit subsidizing corn and beans, because we aren't going to make our planet healthier with corn and beans. That's not what people even eat. If we're going to feed the world, give me a small grain, give me a cover crop. So if I got that third crop and that can be subsidized, and let's tax nitrogen like we tax cigarettes, tax nitrogen to balance our carbon and nitrogen ratio back out, because excess nitrogen is part of the big trouble. Now, if nitrogen was taxed and you had to be careful on how much they used, they'll get more efficient with it. And if they subsidize that third crop, that's all I need to do is those two things, and I'll radically change agriculture.
Yes. If someone would like more information on what you've done over your vast experience and years of wisdom, where can they go and how can they get more information on Gary Zimmer?
So first, my company has been Midwestern Bio-Ag, and they can certainly check out our websites and things, but I've written the 3 books, and with my daughter Leilani helping me, and the last book, The Biological Farmer, is now 500 pages, and I can't say anymore. I've said it all I can say in there. But if you want just an easy read, the second book, called Advancing Biological Farming, should be called Practical Biological. It's a much easier read. And if you read through that and the principles don't make sense for you, then I suggest you keep doing what you've been doing. So if you want to get more involved of what my whole life is, we called it biological farming. I called it biological farming back in the 1970s because I wanted people to focus on biology and not chemistry. So that's why the biological farmer came about, and that's what they are. So the books, I think, are for a purpose. I want to get more introduced to what this is all about. And I would suggest that middle book, Advancing Biological Farming. Now, if you're a reader and a scientist and you like chemistry and science, then get the big old fat 500-page book and have at it.
There you go. Many different options for the continuing education. We thank Gary Zimmer and the information he's given, and good luck in the next 40 years.
Thank you.